Hey guys, this is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today for part 1 of this discussion about Cassie and Diddy. For this podcast, I'm going to also include a brief astrological analysis for Diddy, focusing on important events in his life. Part 2 of my analysis will be posted for the Stargazer members because I'll be covering some of the allegations in Cassie's lawsuit, which are very explicit and triggering. So before I get into that, I wanted to talk about why I believe Cassie settled less than 24 hours after the lawsuit was filed. There are some ridiculous people saying that Cassie was only after the money, as if she's not entitled to get paid after being drugged and beaten for a damn decade, okay? I don't believe that Cassie was only after the money. As a matter of fact, I don't believe that Cassie was the one who wanted to file this lawsuit, really. She met Diddy, 15 years ago? She had plenty of time to sue Diddy for more money than he was giving her when she was with him. So why would she wait? Unless this is something that she really didn't want to do. I think she wanted to close the door on this chapter of her life, which is why she got married and had a family so quickly. So what most people seem to have forgotten already is that Diddy got his seed money to start Bad Boy from Clive Davis, okay? He received a $15 million distribution deal back in the 1990s. And if you don't know who Clive Davis is, I suggest you do a lot of research. Diddy has had goons and cleaners helping him to escape from his crimes for decades. Think about the allegations that Cassie filed in her lawsuit, okay? We're talking about human trafficking, drugs, terroristic acts, HIPAA law violations, ritualistic sexual assaults. What does this behavior sound like? What does it sound like? I can't call anybody on the phone and ask for a bomb to blow somebody's car up over some petty nonsense. Who was supplying Diddy with thousands of dollars in illegal drugs? You should know that the entertainment industry, Hollywood, music, sports, modeling specifically, these industries are used by the mafia and other government agencies as a cover for child abuse or child trafficking, drug and weapons trafficking, human trafficking, etc., etc., etc. Nick Cannon told Lad TV that most, if not all, models are prostitutes. Okay? Back in the day, a long time ago, over a decade ago, it came out that a lot of these female superstar singers also have to do dirty work for rich and powerful men. This is not news. I honestly think that before this case went to trial, either Cassie or Diddy would have gotten Epsteined before they could testify. That's just me speculating. The discovery process in and of itself would have opened up an entire can of worms because, again, who blew up Kid Cudi's car? Does he work for an agency? Does this person have ties to other car bombings? What escort agency did Cassie hire those men from? Where did these men come from? Do y'all know that the record industry is grooming the next generation of young women to be Cassies? This hypersexualized music that's being created by these talentless prostitutes is funding the drug trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking, weapons dealing. They're using our culture to fund terrorism. Do y'all know that? They've been doing this for a long time. So please do not get it twisted. Cassie was not going to be able to testify whether she wanted to or not, whether Diddy wanted to or not. This was not going to happen. Just like Epstein wasn't allowed to testify before he was killed, Diddy has ties to some very powerful, nasty, dark, rich people who want to protect him in order to protect themselves. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of Diddy's enemies put Cassie up to this. I'm not saying it's for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was put up to this to humble him. And Diddy knew this was coming. He knew this was coming because that's why he gave all of his artists back their publishing so they can sign NDAs, meaning they can't testify against them in court about anything that they've witnessed or experienced while working at Bad Boy or any of its affiliate companies. So just because this case was settled doesn't mean that, number one, Cassie was only out for money. Number two, they didn't do anything. It just means that right now he's too big to fail. Okay? You know who they are, quote unquote, are probably going to wait until some players behind the scenes die off before they take him down, like with Cosby, who's mad old now, because Diddy seems like the type of person who would turn on everybody to get off the hook. He's loyal to nobody. And again, the elites have no problem silencing people who talk too much shit. Do y'all think that in the age of social media, millions of people who would tune into this case, millions of them would not be able to connect the dots in this situation to other crimes that were being committed in the entertainment industry at the same time? A few years ago, YouTube started to sweep its platform of all the old conspiracy theory stuff dealing with secret societies. And there are a lot of videos dropping dime about what really happens in the entertainment industry. Recently, Drew Dixon, who was the A&R for Def Jam and Arista, she just sued L.A. Reid for sexual harassment after decades of not being in the industry. She was the one who revealed that she was violated by Russell Simmons, who fled to Bali to avoid extradition laws. Y'all don't know that the reason why every video vixen is light skin with long hair, right? All these whack female singers are light skin with long hair, not because they're exceptionally talented. Some of them are, but these women are eye candy for Black record executives and producers. They prefer to sign women who they want to have sex with because men like to use their power to force women to have sex with them. They've been doing this for thousands of years. This is not because of slavery or single mother homes. Black men with power are just as demonic and destructive and abusive as white men with power. When in Rome, do as Romans do, and Black people have assimilated into Rome. Which brings me to my final point about this. A lot of Black men are saying that Cassie put up with Diddy for 10 damn years for the money, as if her being a hired escort justified Diddy beating the crap out of her and drugging her and forcing her to terminate pregnancies allegedly, right? Ripping out her hair allegedly. These Black men are acting as if because Cassie was a hired escort, whatever she was to him, Diddy was entitled to beat on her. He was obligated to do so. That was his right to put his hands on her the way he did. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of Black sex workers do not want to service Black men. Because from what I've heard, many Black men believe that if they pay a woman for sex, they believe they have the right to brutalize her body, to treat her the way that Diddy treated Cassie, or the way Joe Budden treated a few of the women that he was dealing with, right? They believe that they have the right to treat the woman like Cassie. And this is one of the main reasons why I hate sex work. I hate when women glorify sex work as if it's some sort of liberation to allow these disgusting men to use your body to vent their hatred, their anger, and their frustrations on you. Y'all need to starve these men out. Starve these demons out. Do not give them sex. Let them get their rocks off by themselves, elsewhere with each other. I don't care. But do not allow them to use you as a sex object. I would never get into sex work because I have contempt for most of these men. Yes, some of these men are fine. They're interesting. They're attractive. I don't care. But as a whole, a lot of men are garbage. Okay? So there are plenty of Diddies in the music industry, in the entertainment industry, in finance and business, in everyday walks of life, in the Black community of all socioeconomic classes. Plenty of Black men who get sadistic pleasure out of seeing a woman in emotional, mental, or physical pain. And this is why so many Black men revere pimps to this day. They'd rather be pimps than simps. The late comedian Patrice O'Neal said that if many women knew what really goes on in a man's mind, they'd be disgusted and horrified. So I've said this many times. A lot of Black men want to extract a pound of flesh from a woman's body, literally and figuratively. Many of them hate women. You cannot read that paperwork that Cassie filed and believe that Diddy doesn't hate women. He despises them. He wanted to see a woman's body ravaged and destroyed by a man's lust. This is sick people. These are men that Thomas the Tank Engine face females like Carisha are fighting over. Now I have a question. If Diddy is treating Carisha the same way he treated Cassie, because I think they're still together at this point, some way, Would people have sympathy for her if she knows what she's getting into at this point? Now I'm going to tell the truth. I'm running out of sympathy for dumb women who are willingly going into the meat grinder for bags and shoes and clothes. Like, I'm sick of it. But this is what happens when your culture has been used to propagate a certain message. Now these girls want to live the fast life, the high life that's been promoted by these rappers. These rappers are using their music to recruit new clients. They're using their music to recruit the next generation of Cassies. That's what they're doing. That's why all these women are hypersexualized now, to get you used to the idea of being someone's sex slave, eating somebody's behind. Who is doing this but sex workers? All right, now on to part 1 of my analysis. I'm going to focus on the transits of Uranus aspecting Diddy's sun in Scorpio and his Mars in Capricorn, because these planets are very significant in his chart. So according to Astro.com, Diddy was born on November 4th, 1969 in Harlem, New York. I don't have a time of birth for him, so I'm just going to discuss the planetary relationships. This situation between Cassie and Diddy reminds me of the mythology of Persephone and Hades. In this story, Persephone was this innocent virgin girl that was held captive in hell by the lord of the underworld, Hades. Like Cassie, Persephone was a Virgo. And like Hades, Diddy's Plutonian. He's Martian. He's Scorpio. Now, this mythology is about the autumnal equinox, which occurs at the end of the Virgo season. In fact, it's the first day of Libra, which means that daytime and nighttime hours are equal. So in this mythology, Persephone is a beautiful young virgin that is seen by Hades, who's older, brooding. He lives in the shadows. He's more experienced. And Persephone's parents tell Hades to kick rocks when he asks for her hand in marriage. So Hades then devises a plan to use a narcissus flower to bait Persephone and kidnap her, just like Diddy used a fake party flyer to trick Cassie into going to Miami without her boyfriend, Ryan Leslie, and he met her there. Then he forced himself onto her sexually, and that's how the relationship began. So Hades and Diddy are pretty much the same goddamn person. Now, in the story, Hades treated Persephone relatively well, but she still missed her mother and living among the beauty of nature, which represents spring and summer months. I'm not going to go into the full story on this podcast, but Demeter, Persephone's mother, she negotiates a trade-off where Persephone gets to spend 6 months with her family and 6 months with Hades. In part 2, I'm going to discuss how this mythology pertains to Cassie and Diddy, not to romanticize the situation, because what happened to her was absolutely horrific. But you guys know how I always try to incorporate valuable lessons with my commentary. So I believe this current situation was initiated by the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which happened on May 5th of this year, exactly 6 months before Diddy's solar return. And this full moon solar eclipse was at 14 degrees of Scorpio, which means that it formed a conjunction with Diddy's sun. And this eclipse cycle was culminated by the partial lunar eclipse in Taurus at 5 degrees on October 28th, which was only 5 minutes, not 5 degrees. It was 5 minutes away from Diddy's natal Saturn in Taurus. So this year, there were 2 eclipses that affected Diddy's personal planets. That was his sun, which is the identity, and his Saturn, which is karmic debts and responsibilities, right? Well, this Saturn is not really personal, but it's within the inner planets. Okay. So the sun is the identity and Saturn is karmic debts and responsibilities. And as I talked about on my Matthew Perry chart analysis, eclipses that aspect Saturn usually bring about karmic endings or the beginning of a new cycle of loss or gain relative to the person's previous actions, okay? So Diddy's an occultist. He knew this was going to happen. Hence the brother love reformation that he's been going through for the past couple of years. But Diddy will be in spiritual prison for at least 2 years while Saturn is conjunct his North Node in Pisces. When Saturn conjuncts the North Node in transit, you are blocked, you're stuck, you're locked into a situation or circumstance that's beyond your control. Pisces deals with secrets, deceptions, drugs, addictions, and illusions. And with Saturn in Pisces, people will have to pay for the consequences of being deceptive, their drug addictions, and many hidden things will be revealed because Saturn's energy cuts through the fog of Neptune's magical thinking and mystery. So for at least the next 2 years, Diddy will have to deal with the fallout of this situation financially, emotionally, and socially. Furthermore, the eclipses were conjunct with Diddy's Saturn in Taurus, which is about property ownership, legacy, tangible assets, finances. He's going to lose a lot of money and assets during this time. As a matter of fact, this process has already started because Diddy gave away, he gave his artists back their publishing to force them to sign NDAs, as I mentioned earlier. So he's going to have to use the money that he gained from cheating and scamming and criminal activity to cover his behind. And his earning potential will decrease significantly because no one's going to want to be associated with him or his brand for the foreseeable future. He's going to have to move his money around behind the scenes. Now let's talk about Uranus. Uranus is the planet of freedom, chaos, liberation, electricity, and sudden changes. As of today, Uranus is forming in opposition to Diddy's sun. The orb is very wide, but the impact will still be felt because Uranus is retrograde. And during the aforementioned May 5th eclipse in Scorpio, Uranus was at approximately 16 degrees of Taurus, which opposed his sun at a much tighter orb. The current Uranus transit in Taurus started in 2018, which destabilized the world itself. And we can see this with an increase in environmental instability, both naturally and man-made with these, train derailments that spill chemicals into the environment. We got hurricanes and volcanoes and earthquakes up the wazoo, floods everywhere. This is what it is, right? We also saw this with the instability in the financial system, real estate markets, and people's overall sense of security during COVID, which caused a major sociocultural paradigm shift, okay? So when Uranus conjunct Saturn in a transit, unexpected positive or negative events force you to deal with the karma of your past behavior. In astrology, Saturn represents loss, restrictions, debts, imprisonment, poverty, and slavery. It is called the Great Malefic, although I do believe that outer planets are greater malefics. It's called the Great Malefic because of its pernicious influence. Saturn extracts, it separates, it suppresses. And Uranus, which is also malefic, is like the pressure valve release. It's a sudden pressure valve release. It's combustible energy. And this energy destroys by forcing us to release the things that we value, our ideas, our beliefs, and so on. On the other hand, Saturn destroys through binding and oppression, like starvation. It's a slow and painful process. So what happens when you combine a planet that elicits sudden change with a planet that is slow and gradual? You will see the destruction of something that was created over a long period of time. This could be a lifestyle, an institution, a legacy, a thought process or belief system. Whatever long-standing ideas, attitudes, or beliefs or constructs that you've created will be radically changed during the tense Uranus transit. So this is what Diddy is going through now. But this isn't the first time Diddy has experienced danger, chaos, and overall instability during Uranian transits. Now let's take a look at some of the significant Uranian events Diddy has experienced over the past 30 years. I'm not going to cover everything, but just some of the notables. On December 18th, 1991, Diddy hosted an event with Heavy D at CUNY City College, and Diddy overbooked the venue, so the building was packed, and unfortunately, a stampede ensued, killing 9 people in the process, including a pregnant woman. This is kind of like what happened, I think, with Travis Scott's concert a couple of years ago. So this event happened as Uranus was approaching a conjunction to Diddy's Mars in Capricorn at 29 degrees. It was in the same sign, but about 16 degrees away. Uranus conjunct Mars is a very dangerous aspect with surprising situations that get out of control very quickly, like a volcanic eruption or bridge collapse. One of the significations of Uranus is mass crowds and stampedes. Okay, we're dealing with the element of surprise. So because this conjunction included Diddy's Mars and Saturn and Taurus in a square, it was violent, it was suffocating, and it was deadly. 9 people were crushed to death. So we see surprise, violence, and suffocation with this combination of Mars, Saturn, and Uranus. All right. November 13th, 1994, Tupac gets shot in New York City while visiting Quad recording studios in New York City. So Tupac was shot in the lobby, and Tupac ended up blaming Diddy and Biggie for this betrayal. At the time of this event, Uranus was transiting through Capricorn at 23 degrees and 48 minutes, about 6 degrees from exactitude with Diddy's natal Mars in Capricorn, which again is at 29 degrees. Okay, so again, Mars and Uranus. Situations become combustible and volatile, like a bomb going off. Uranus's influence can induce explosive, surprising situations that cause a permanent shift in awareness. I don't know if Diddy was involved in the shooting or not, but Tupac believed that he was at least partially responsible. And so Diddy had to deal with Tupac's rage and anger about the situation and the subsequent East Coast, West Coast beef that occurred afterwards. It was pretty much out of his hands, and Diddy had to be smart and strategic in order to survive the upcoming conflict. It is very funny how all these crimes and dramas happening around Diddy, and nobody knows who did it to this day, okay? That sounds like mafia to me. Criminal elements, people who work underground, behind the scenes, who have ties to the occult, ties to, government agencies, ties to criminal organizations. This is what all this sounds like. All this death happening and drama. And nobody's getting arrested. It's crazy. All right. September 7th, 1996. Tupac gets shot in Las Vegas fatally. At the time of this event, Uranus was at 1 degrees and 4 minutes of Aquarius, forming an out-of-sign conjunction with Diddy's Mars and Capricorn, less than 1 degree away. This aspect is exceptionally explosive and dangerous. Diddy may have felt compelled to make a quick and rash and violent decision that had long-term implications, as Uranus is now squaring his natal Saturn in Taurus. Diddy's back was against the wall. He had no choice in the matter, almost. And it's no coincidence that a few weeks ago, Keefe D, who was implicated in Tupac's murder, was arrested on September 29th of this year, about 26 years after his death. Okay, so it's important to know that Saturn creates tense aspects every 7, 14, 21, and 28 years. So by next year, Diddy will have to deal with something that he did 28 years ago. A lot of drama that Diddy was involved in the past is coming to a head with this Uranus and Taurus transit, which again is conjunct his Saturn and Taurus. Coupled with the eclipses, the next couple of years will be very difficult for Diddy. Because not only is he going to have his third nodal return in 2025, but this nodal return will form a conjunction with Saturn and Pisces. And as I mentioned earlier, eclipses between Saturn and the nodes are very karmic. Debts must be paid in full during this period. So, March 9th, 1997, Biggie Smalls gets shot in Las Vegas fatally. And during this time, Uranus was forming a separating conjunction to Diddy's natal Mars at 7 degrees of Aquarius. The orb for Mars and Uranus is about 5 to 6 degrees. So this is most definitely still a conjunction. It's an out-of-sign conjunction, but still a conjunction. Again, Mars and Uranus is unexpected, violent events, explosive events, surprising situations that happen and they change your life permanently. There's no going back after somebody dies. Tupac died. Biggie died. 9 people in, at CUNY University died. You can't turn back after that. So Diddy is still left unscathed as all this chaos and drama swirls around him. But the 90s was a very scorpionic time for Diddy, especially during the Pluto and Scorpio transit. But he has an exalted Mars in Capricorn, trine Pluto and Virgo. These dangerous experiences were exhilarating for Diddy, and he used them to enrich himself both socially and financially. November 16th, 2023. Cassie files a lawsuit against Diddy, a civil lawsuit for his horrendous abuse against her. And I will discuss this in further detail on the membership channel. So on that day, Uranus was retrograde at 20 degrees of Taurus, forming an opposition to his Neptune in Scorpio. Diddy is currently experiencing an existential crisis. His sense of identity has been shaken or rattled by the situation, which has severely damaged what was left of his public reputation. Diddy's ability to use deception and coercion to make money and to fool the public into buying into his brand has been significantly damaged or diminished. His attitude and beliefs about himself is changing as he is forced to see himself the way that other people see him now. Narcissists hate to be seen for who they are. And Uranus opposing the natal Neptune shatters a person's illusions about themselves, especially when Neptune is conjunct their sun or ascendant. Ironically, Uranus also rules technology and the airwaves. And this medium was used to disseminate this information about the lawsuit, and it was used to destroy Diddy's illusions about himself and his brand. The public also sees Diddy for who he really is, and now he's trapped in the same wide net that he's cast over the world. This is one of the reasons why I think somebody behind the scenes put Cassie up to this. Not to say that she's lying. She's not lying about this, in my opinion. She's telling the truth. But Diddy, in my opinion, and I believe this to be a fact, Diddy is being put on notice, just like Cosby was put on notice when his son was killed, or Michael Jordan was put on notice when his father was killed, or Michael Jackson was put on notice when the first child abuse allegations came out back in the 90s. Like, these powerful elites who are dirty, but very rich, they allow you to do dirt as an insurance policy to keep you in check. Once you start feeling yourself and doing things that you're not allowed to do, they're going to, put you in your place. They'll scare you back into submission. Now, as a side note, I forgot to mention this earlier. Not all broke men are pious, and not all rich men are sociopathic degenerates. But Diddy was allowed to get rich and powerful by other rich and powerful men who are degenerates. And behind every powerful man is a more powerful man. Just ask Obama, okay? So, by the way, when Neptune enters Aries in 2026, you're going to start seeing more people get active with occult and celestial magic. And it's going to feel like Star Wars out here until 2040. And then the occultism will go back underground, kind of, sort of, when Neptune enters Taurus. Lots of children being born at this time, Neptune in Pisces and Neptune in Aries. They're going to be reincarnated witches, wizards, and warlocks and occultists that were killed during the Inquisition and during various witch hunts in Europe. Some have already returned back into, the 3D. Some have already reincarnated, but others are waiting for the stars to align when Neptune enters Aries, because they need to wait to have access to certain keys that will be activated at this time. All right, I'm going to leave it there. As for part 2 of this commentary, I will focus on Diddy's relationship with Cassie and how the allegations align with Diddy and Cassie's charts industry. If you want to listen to part 2, please join the membership tier where I post weekly astrology readings about celebrities and other topics. I will post a tarot reading about Cassie and Diddy's situation later this week, most likely on Tuesday. I do have some client readings to finish. If you want to order a personal reading, please go to my website. The link is in the description box. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon.